Hey everybody, it's Gail, and this is Errata-Hate episode 64, and I'm really excited today because I'm going to be showing you a tool called Stitch Fiddle, which you may already know about. You might have heard about it, maybe you've played around with it a little bit, but maybe you haven't. And so what Stitch Fiddle is a web-based tool for working on crochet patterns, or you can use it for cross-stitch and knitting as well, but the idea is that if you have something you want to graph out, you can do it in their interface rather than, kind of twiddling around using tables in Word or using Excel or whatever else you might have used in the past or thought about using. And this is the program I use to create my corner-to-corner scarf patterns. I didn't actually use it to create the big Barta blanket, although it would have been perfect for that. I didn't know Stitch Fiddle was around when I created that blanket, so that was done in a Microsoft Word table, and I never want to do that again. Oof. So what's going to happen is the camera is going to change completely. I'm going to record straight off my computer screen so I can show you how this tool works. A couple of things. There is a free version of it that allows you most of the tools available. I don't remember what's part of the subscription fee, but it is only $20 a year, which is super reasonable. And if pattern design or just project design is something that you're really into or something you want to do more with, definitely start with the free version, see if you like it. But then, the paid version is very inexpensive. So a couple of things to keep in mind. I'm going to get things set up on my end, and I will see you in a minute. Well, you'll hear me in a minute. You know how it goes. So I am here on the Stitch Fiddle main page. So when you log in, this is what you see. And, my email address is here, but it's on all my business cards, so who cares? A lot of strangers have my business cards. What's a few more on the internet in terms of my email address? But I digress. So this is, like I said, this is the main page, and you can see some of my charts here. I wanted to go ahead and show you a finished chart that I have to give you a sense of what things look like and show you some of the tools, and then I'm going to do a small chart to just walk you through some stuff. So going to open my Blue Ball the Patriarchy scarf chart here, and I have this, I made this for a pattern that I sell on Etsy, and we Blue Ball the Patriarchy because it doesn't deserve to get fucked. So first thing you can see the whole length of the scarf. Now this is, I think, 168 rows if I'm not mistaken. And it's zoomed out so I can see how everything looked. I got this font, by the way, by going and looking up cross-stitch alphabets, which if you do corner to corner or tapestry or anything where you want to do writing, that's a really good resource to kind of see what's out there that could be a good fit rather than always having to come up with your own look. So first of all, let's zoom in a little. So I hit the magnifier, you get this great little zoom bar here. And I love that they also show you some other ways to do it. I tend to be a buttons person, so if it's on the screen, I'll use the button. So zooming in, you can see that it cleans it up. Now, if I really come in here, I can see my numbers, I can see all of my individual pieces. So I'm going to close that. And, let's say that I was doing a bit of a tweak on the pattern and I decided that this little spot right here is something I don't want anymore. So I'm going to come over to the pencil, and that is going to open up this sidebar. So I have these colors. I also have, this is great. You pop this open, and this lets you change the names of the colors and things for written instructions, which I'll talk about in a minute. But then also you can just add more colors. And one of the things I like about how this is laid out is that it is laid out by shade. And so if you're doing an ombre thing, if you're doing a color pooling thing, you can come in here and just choose the individual pieces you want to use. There's also a symbol thing here. And I'll talk about that more a little later because there's a whole section of Stitch Fiddle that is for using symbols. But, if you're ever looking for it, just to mess with it. So anyway, I want to get rid of this little doodad. So over here, the white is selected, and I just click. And it's that easy to just, you click individual squares to make colors work or not. Now, because of course I don't want to actually lose that, I have two options. I can come up here and click the undo arrow, or I can come over here, click the blue, and put it back. I tend to pick the color again and replace it, just because I like to not do things. I'm not usually doing one square at a time. Usually what I'm doing is something like this, where I'm just wiping out whole sections. And when I'm doing that, it is not uncommon for me to take out a piece that I didn't mean to. So I'm going to undo so you can see this again. And let's say that I'm coming down here and whoop, got a hole. So I can undo, but sometimes when I'm doing this, I'll kind of drag and stop and then drag and stop. And depending on how long I've been doing that, the undo arrow stops working. So that is where it comes in handy to just be able to come over and pick your color and fill in the holes yourself. So the other thing that is super useful on the charts is this is the select tool, and what happens is it grays out your entire graph, and you're going to come down here and you're going to click and drag, and then when you do that, you're going to get a list of options. So you can copy sections, you can mirror them, you can fill them with different colors, you can crop them. We're not going to do any of that because, again, I don't want to ruin this chart. And then if you just come up and you right click in any square, it gives you the option to edit various parts of it, including adding and deleting columns and rows. So if you're working on something and you don't know how large it's going to be, which is what happened for me, I kept having to add columns at the end of this, you can do that very easily with a right click, which I like. So I'm going to come over to the little save button and save. And now that that's done, I'm going to just go back to my charts by clicking that folder. Now, if you are an organized person, you may actually have various folders. I'm not an organized person, so they're all just like partying together. But now I want to show you how to make a new chart. So I'm going to come over here to Create New. And here's your crafts. Of course, we're going to be crocheting. So corner to corner crochet is an option, crochet with colors. So if you do a lot of color work, if you're trying to lay out maybe a granny square pattern with certain colors, this is really useful. The big thing for me that I love my big barter blanket pattern. I think it's one of the best things I've done. And man, it would have been so much easier to do it here. So I just showed you some of the corner to corner stuff, but I want to show you some other stuff when you're making it. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at the crochet with color. We will be skipping Tunisian because I don't do Tunisian. And then I'm going to show you some of the free form. And we're going to be skipping the filet crochet because that's not something I've worked with yet. So there may be a video later on where I come back to show you how that works. But first of all, corner to corner. So there's an empty chart, which is usually what I use. You can do it from a picture. You can create a QR code. With the picture, what you do is you upload the picture and then the program translates it out into a series of squares. I have not used it myself. I've seen people use it for cross stitch. That's a big thing in cross stitch. And it's very similar when you're doing it in crochet, of course. But let's do an empty chart. It starts with a grid size. I love this. There's a size calculator that lets you kind of figure out how big things need to be. Again, if I were more organized, I would be using this. I am not that organized, so I don't use it. But so let's do 20 to 20, create a chart. Here's our chart. And you might notice that the starting square for corner to corner is down over here, which is incorrect. Corner to corner crochet is always work left to right. I did a couple of videos, intro videos on corner to corner crochet a while back. I don't have the video numbers in front of me. I probably should have done that. But anyway, corner to corner always works left to right. And so what you want to do is come up here to, you can come up to the menu chart settings, title, layout. And so a title is Errata-Hate chart. And we're going to apply that. Oh, and then we're going to come back in. You can do this all at once, actually. You can just go straight across. I just forgot to. You can do a direction. And so it is a diagonal. But you need to be working from the bottom left to the top right. And then you're doing an alternating start from left to right. And so having done that, you can hit close and click out of that. And now we've got it going the right direction. So for the purposes of this, we're just going to do a really simple zigzag. And I'm not going to do the whole zigzag. I'm not going to make you watch me do 20 rows and columns of zigzags. I'm just getting a little start here. So one of the things I like about this is that you can click individually, or if you're doing something where you have a certain look of things, you can click and drag. But for a classic corner to corner, if we're just doing stripes, we're just going to be doing this. So when you're working on these patterns, something to keep in mind is that you can just let the white squares be the white squares. You don't have to color code everything. So if you're doing a 2-color pattern, you can say that, white is color A, purple is color B. However, if you're doing like a particular look, then, being able to lay out by color preference is really nice. So we're going to make a big, loud, obnoxious party right here, because this is how I tend to work. And let's say you're doing something like a coaster, which, even 10 by 10, we're doing something small. Anyway, so we're doing something small. We don't need all this excess space. And so we're going to click and drag, and we're going to come over here, and we're going to crop. And that takes us down to our selected area. Now there is this extra row up here, so we're going to right click, and we are going to delete this row. And now we have the shape and size that we want, and we can continue on, which I'll spare you from. So that's great. Now, some other things that you can do. There is a line draw ability, and I've never really used it, but you can definitely use it if you're trying to maybe better showcase where the split is in your pattern. So I've chosen the red, so it'll show up. I draw a big red line. And I imagine this is very helpful if you're showing people where to sew stuff together, or if you're just wanting to make sure that people can more easily see the individual rows. There is an option, there is a written instructions option that is part of the paid service. And this is the one part of the program that I don't love, because it just breaks it down by the color abbreviation and the number, and it doesn't really read as, it's not a pattern. It's just this is what my notes look like when I do stuff for myself. This is not a written pattern or written instructions that are particularly useful. So I don't love this part of it, but if you're someone who kind of works on the fly like I do a lot, and just wants to be able to sort of do a thing and then print out and have a set of notes that you can read all of them at the same time, as opposed to figuring out what that word was you wrote 3 months ago, this is useful. So I don't want to say that's not useful. It's just not going to give you a written pattern that you can turn into, that you can easily turn into a pattern that you can, share with people. The other thing that's over here is this download button. And so this is what I do at the end when I finish my charts and I'm ready to put them into my patterns, is I download them. And you have some options. So with PDF, it's just going to give you a PDF that you can do whatever you want with. I tend to go with images because of how I lay out my patterns. So if I go to a JPEG, it gives me the option to have the legend, which is going to give the color codes. You can decide how you want your grid lines laid out. It tells you you have options for charts. So you have a detailed chart, which is going to show you the numbers that you have, like which rows you're on, or just a simple color chart, which is just going to be only the colors, none of the numbers. And the other thing is that you can choose the size. So you have small, medium, large, or custom, and I prefer custom when I'm doing my own stuff because I like to be able to take a larger image and then shrink it down to fit the page that I'm working on, because what that will do will up the resolution for the printing, and you get a very clear print. So you can do pixels, millimeters, centimeters, inches, and then you get to decide if this number is width or height. By the way, I have had a number of times where I thought, oh yeah, I've got this, it's no problem. And then I do like 3 inches high, and what I get is the pattern, the chart itself in the middle of a page, and then showing this huge amount of white space. So I'm going to close that out. I don't recall off the top of my head how many of those download options are available on the free version. But as I mentioned in the first part of the video, it's $20 a year to have access to this. And I think that is just super reasonable, especially as I'm going to show you some of the other stuff that you can do with it. So let's go back to create new, I'm going to crochet again, and let's look at crochet with colors. Again, I'm going to do an empty chart, give me the same thing, and it looks the same. And so it's not really that much different than working corner to corner, but the idea here is that you're probably setting individual stitches rather than the corner to corner stitch pattern. The other thing is that you can set this up so that, oh, that's not it, over here. You can come over here and set this up so that it's just, you know, top down or from bottom up. We're actually going to do top down because I don't know why you would work from bottom up. And then you have the alternating starts. And what that's going to do is help people while they're working your pattern to know where they are in the pattern when you're working in color. So again, not noticeably different from corner to corner. I think the reason they have it set individually on its own is so people who don't do corner to corner know that they can use this program. But the last one I want to show you is this free form, which is pretty great. Just a big white page, and you have a bunch of crochet symbols over here. I actually tend to create my own crochet symbols and place them myself in Illustrator because that's the level of control that I like to have. But Illustrator's a big complicated program, and it costs a small fortune. And this is a much more understandable program that does not cost a small fortune, and I think that that is a big note in its favor, is that it is not, you don't have to learn a bunch of new software to make it work. So for example, let's do a quick one. Nope. Okay. So I'm just going to drop a bunch of chain stitches here. Clearly this is not my best work, but there you go. Chain stitches, and then we're going to drop some single crochet stitches. And now, you know, let's say I'm like, oh, you know what, I kind of actually want that a little bit larger. What we're going to do is you're going to click and drag, select the whole thing, and you can copy and paste. And then you can just take this as a group and move it around. So that's a really nice thing. You know, you can do all of your various, we've got a join, slip stitch, the various basic stitches. You've got some decreases, some bobbles. This is picot. Back loop, front loop, you've got your post crochet, and I love that, but you know, maybe you're looking for a little more to work with. Well, when you click the one, you get the symbol, and then you can come in and choose a category. So what you're seeing here are the basic crochet stitches that are approved by the Craft Yarn Council, and I really like that they used a known source for these. I like that they pick something that a lot of people can find when they Google. You can also come to crochet charts and get a larger selection of options. And there is also the Tunisian option if you work in Tunisian. So you can come in and you can get those symbols as well. So I like that it gives you these options. one of the reasons I don't tend to use this, again, is because I have Illustrator, but if I didn't have Illustrator, this would have been amazing. You know, I'm just so used to working in Illustrator when I do my charts, so that's the big thing. The other thing, when you grab, you can move them all around. This is dangerous. This is how you end up making weird stuff, I think, is you just like goof off with it. But you've got that ability to move things how you want, so if you're doing a curve, you can sort of work things a little bit at a time and get the shape that you're looking for. So that's what it looks like to work the freeform. And so that is my general, that's my general walkthrough of Stitch Fiddle. Like I've said, it's $20 a year. You have all of these options. There's a lot available to you in the free version, and so you know if you're kind of curious, but you don't know that you're going to use it a lot, you know, definitely get an account, play around with it. I can tell you, they do not send you emails. They do not cover you with reminders that you have the account. They understand that they're a tool that you will or won't use, and they let it kind of stand on its own, which is great. So that's what it looks like. That's how it works. Give it a shot. You know, let me know how you think. You know, if you've played with it before, if you're going to jump in and try it now, you know, let me know what you think about it. And so that's the end of this episode. As always, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, please like, subscribe, share. And I will see you guys for episode 65.